So is it?
This-
I don't know if there was a couple that came in. I don't know. if they were-
We're not doing it, let's call it. I don't know.
No, I was just
But we are-
asking.
Yeah.
I hereby call to order the tenth viewer field driver regular meeting, Monday, September 12th, 2022 at 10 a.m. We're at Old Town Hall, and this meeting is being recorded, both audio and visual, and will be posted on YouTube. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Side note, I'd like to ask forgiveness that I forgot that. So we're going to have only one topic, which is business. This is an update on 23 Pleasant Street.
Go ahead so I can see.
Okay,
Audio,
please
that's
don't
all.
put your. Actually, would you guys be amenable to, I think I have to switch this and talk about the correspondence because it's sort of historical, I think, for now. You guys have any issues with that?
No, have you noted in the minutes that Mr. McKeon is here? It's famous here. Don't know.
So I'll entertain a motion to take things out of order.
So moved. So where are we gonna go? What do you
I'm
want?
just going to go talk about the correspondence that has happened about this prior to discussing what's going on now.
Right.
I'm just trying to take it.
Sure.
So my motion is to take agenda item 4A out of order.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Oh,
All those in favor?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so first we had, we had received several communications and sent several communications about this. And first we have several emails that came from Mr. Tibbetts, David Tibbetts, dated one dated August 31st. And this is quite lengthy, and I'm not going to here, but to summarize what Mr. Tibbetts is talking about is again the concept of whether the line is a straight line or whether it is a wall, and he has given some references about what surveying does, talk about direction versus the stone wall, and I believe this is pretty much a reiteration of what he had said in the plan. Did you two both see this email and read it?
Yes.
Agree with
Yeah,
my-
I saw it.
Agree, that's fair.
And there's a photograph here of the actual area. You can now see that the logs have been removed. What is
It's
it?
everything you have. I know that's good.
Yeah, that would be. Then there was another letter, another email sent by Mr. Tibbetts on Friday, September 2nd. Basically, he's complaining about some actions that will be taken about the stone mason and talking about moving of the boundary line. I'd just like to state for the record, this board, our responsibility, I believe I've said this to you separately, the responsibility of this board is the fence, the wall. We are not surveyors. We do not determine where the property lines are. We do not determine where property boundary markers are. I will say, after going to the site, the boundary was not moved. To the best of my knowledge, it was like in the same spot. And I think everyone would recognize that, I think it's common knowledge that moving a boundary marker is a major, it's a criminal offense. So obviously, I don't believe that happens. So taking in, consider Mr. Tibbetts' concerns, I don't think we can take about. Any questions about that or concerns or comments? What is it going to say?
He mentioned at one point in time was, you know, the hole in the wall, the one pile of rock in the back corner. And he was saying basically that these have never been moved and they've been that way forever. As long as that stone wall's been. Did I understand that correctly?
That is what you said.
Right, okay. So his contention is if it's been that way, it should stay that way. And because the property lines, that's just the way it's
So-
been,
so,
and that's the
yeah.
way it should stay. I mean, am I
So Mr.
understanding that
Tibbetts'
correctly?
general argument is saying that
It's been that way forever.
the property boundary is the wall.
Is the wall, right?
And because the wall has a bulge in it, therefore that's
It's
the property.
should stay the bulge, right? Okay, that's what I'm saying. Okay,
But I have,
I just want to make, I understood his point.
right,
Okay,
I have new
Really
information.
right?
Yes.
That's very accurate. Okay.
Okay,
At the last meeting, when I was doing my trying to come to a consensus on what to do,
Right,
that's when he said that if the stones fell over,
that's one thing.
that's his property where those stones landed. Because when that was said, everyone looked at one another.
Right,
I remember that. So anyhow,
but. Right, okay,
Came
so
up
he's
with-
saying that they've been this way, they haven't fallen over and they're on the same line that they've had for a couple of forever period of time, right?
that was his argument.
Bill's saying, look, I've got measurements that say a little bit different.
Yeah.
all right, so yeah, that's where we were after the last meeting.
Right, okay, I just want to make sure I'm on the right page.
All right.
There was another.
It was probably over the weekend that I might not have attached.
One email talked about what you're describing. The other email requested that this board issue a cease and desist order. 'Cause I remember
That was the one I was
reading
talking, that was the one here where he was complaining about,
Okay.
issue with the mason.
Right, he's not a land surveyor, licensed land surveyor.
The other one came in right after the meeting, if not the same day or the next day. And he felt that,
Mason wasn't qualified to make.
Yeah.
those measurements.
but he talked about, my impression was he felt that we pressured the Kane Trust people into a decision that they really didn't want to make. After we had agreed on the stakes up against the base stones and requested that the no trespassing sign be taken down. And the whole thing was, as I read it, I wondered what meeting he went to, because I don't think this board, applied undue pressure on the Kane family or anybody else. That's why I kept asking for a point of consensus, which we had when the meeting ended. His subsequent email came out and stated this, and then I believe, Mrs. Schechter, you had a phone call from Mrs. Kane relative to that email. And that email was not from the Kane family, that Mr. Tibbetts had acted on his own and sent it.
Yes, and I spoke to both Mrs. Kane and Mr. Tibbetts at that time, and I believe I smoothed it over and
Let's clarify that.
clarified, that what we were going to do, and basically stating that, everything comes back to this meeting. This is the time when the decisions are going to be made. Things may change. And, we can't change things in between meetings.
Right.
This is publicly reported, official. Okay. So then there was another. Do you see what-
Now that I only know.
There was one other email, I'm not sure if you two received this one. Basically, he notifying that, the work had been done. And requesting one of us to go out.
Oh, I
and
remember
look
seeing
at
that, yeah.
And he made some some statements, I don't know, so this is gonna become.
You mean the preliminary work, like the wood was removed,
The wood was removed and the stakes were set.
stakes were set, okay.
Right, this is what
That
he's talking
was
about.
our next.
He said this was done. We'll talk about that momentarily. But I just want to be clear that, there's some things in here. Like he's got this part in bold saying, no stones are to be moved to the east of the rest of these three states. I mean, we simply wanted a notification that our.
That we can go out and look again.
Right.
Yeah. That
What we
said
did last
to
time,
you,
we go and take a second look.
he's not dictating to us what, our. Our ruling is going to be. So, just want to be clear on that. I'll pass this around.
Yeah, and I remember you sent an email, said that you would make the site visit and report back. to
I did.
us.
And
Okay.
once we're done with correspondence, I want to talk about site visit. I also have, anything else you guys want to talk about with the emails from Mr. Tippett? So now I have a letter, in front of me from Mr. McKeon, who is present. He's just basically telling us, some information about, he had a stonemason go and get an estimate, and talking about the length of the wall or the property line. Yeah, here, not surveyors. So I'm not sure there's much we can do about this, because this is talking about the property line. Dispute over the property line. You already have a copy of this, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's this one.
So I think it's pertinent to kind of address this. I want to put in the section, which is, what, did you have something you want to say, Nancy?
Yeah, when you went out, are you gonna give us
That's
a
what we'll
report
talk
what you
about.
saw?
You're right.
Okay,
That's what
You want to get all this,
yeah, I'll hold
Right,
it.
so I want to get
kind of, it's in the packet there, that we see, we can.
see where we are. So I did do a site visit on Friday, was it? Okay, and I did see that, indeed, the no trespassing signs are gone. The logs and wood are nicely moved away, plenty of room in there. They did place markers, which as, I'd say they were, sort of like those, things you stick in for snow.
Mhm.
And they marked the center line. I think that's important.
They mark the center line as they understand it.
Yes, and I took some pictures. I don't know if you want me to send you the pictures, or something like that. But it was an appropriate, nice straight line, common sense. And as I discussed with Mrs. Kane, I said, this is the center line of the wall, not the edge of the wall. And I suggest, since, how big are these stones, it's 9 inches or maybe a foot.
Right.
Yeah, it should be within that range. But I have a couple of new pieces of information I'd like to add to this whole thing. I went to do some research on the deed for the Kane property. And because this is the contention about the stone wall, about, the line is the stone wall.
Right.
And if you go back, so every time you get a deed, the deed describes the property. And then usually you see, the previous deed describes it the same way, the previous deed describes it the same way, and so on and so forth. And that's how you get a consistency. But at some point, you got to figure at some point they have to be different. So I went back and back and back and back. And what I found was that in 1823, and I would like you to note this for the minutes in the record, for anybody that wants to look it up, it's book 113, page 531. There is a record of the transfer of this property. Now, I don't know if it was before the wall existed or if they ignored the wall, but that particular description of the property did just say it's a line. It's a line from the street to a marker. So the original, way back in the 1800s, did state it as a straight line. In addition to that, when I was at the site visit, now that the logs have been moved out of the way, the Kanes nicely let me have a shovel and a rake. And we went digging a bit and we found that there are indeed stones. Those stakes that they marked as the center line, literally right up to the edge of those stakes is stones under the ground. So I like to say that I think it's fairly clear, and I'll certainly give you guys a chance to talk. One of you go up, I think it's very clear that the wall did, in my opinion. Any questions or?
And we did talk about the base stones because.
That's what I'm saying. I think
Just saying base stones.
Yeah,
I'm saying stones that are in the ground.
that
We'll
would
call those,
have.
we'll call those.
We call them base stones.
Okay.
They are like, if we look at this picture here.
Yep.
This is an old picture, but you see where these logs are, right? That's like where the edge of the soil, like this first row of logs, that's where the stones are.
Right, so in this picture, you're saying this.
Oh, that's a good picture. Yeah, exactly. So they did a straight line
Yeah.
through here. And
So
I'm saying,
top
you
stones-
see all this dirt area here?
Yes,
There's stones.
okay, so these top stones move, is what would be, okay. Just to understand what you think you're saying.
Yeah, and I think when we had a discussion, when we talked about base stones, we referred to them as base stones, meaning the stones that are in the ground
I would have.
that were put in when that wall was built that have not moved.
Foundation stones, but they are.
They are, yeah, so, and because
Well,
it's,
what I would say though, like I said, it is to the McKeon side. It is, the base stones are, there is a little bit of a bulge there, but it's not as drastic as top stones. Like I said, where they put the markers, and I think Mr. Tibbetts, if I remember correctly, in his email, he had said something to the effect of there are no base stones where you put the markers. And I think he's correct, but they're literally right on the edge
Yeah,
of
so that,
where the base stones are.
so that stake is here and there's a stone right there.
Yeah. And we took it, it was interesting because you could see the dirt, and we took a rake and we put the rake back, you scrape along the stone,
Sure,
and you saw all the topsoil came off.
there's a stone there.
But like I said, it is on the McKeon side of the central one. There is no stones, or I couldn't see any stones that are on Payne side of the central one.
That should be in all your packets.
All right,
okay, thank you.
any other comments, questions? So I just, entertain, we want to hear from Shane, you want to have, say, I'm sorry, but it's long one.
We'd rather hear-
Todd's here, Todd has some. You get it. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Mr. McKeon, do you have anything to add? If you could please come up and talk over here.
I believe only the disc microphone.
Only the disc microphones are working. Podium, if you want.
Yeah, we really should not.
That one is right here. Stone right there.
I don't know that I can fully address everything that your committee has viewed or undertaken since the last meeting, because by and large, this is the very first time I'm finding out about all of it. I have not seen any of the email communications or letters or learned of any phone calls until I heard you summarize them today. And I was able to look at just one of the emails to review before making remarks right now. More importantly, I was unaware that this committee was going to take a further site visit because I wasn't given the opportunity to attend. And were I there, I certainly would have brought other matters to your attention at that time.
So this was an inspection that we did discuss at the last meeting, just myself, just to verify that the items that were supposed to be completed were completed. That was the only.
Yes, however, Mr. Chairman, from your remarks today, you undertook more than that by digging, looking for base stones, and performing further investigation, and apparently coming to conclusions already without the benefit of the petitioner being present, which under the statute, I'm pretty sure I'm entitled to be there for all site visits. So I would ask that in the future, should any members of this board take a site visit for any reason, that at least both parties be notified in advance and have an opportunity to not only attend, but to give to you our own observations and our own opinion of fact and the facts, okay? That the wall bulged is beyond dispute. I think everybody agrees to it. The question is where to put it back. Okay, so the wall that is bulging is a wall that goes in an east and west line from Pleasant Street back towards 138. And where it's supposed to intersect the north-south wall is an issue. The Canes think that the east-west wall should intersect at a more southern point, and McKeon believes it should intersect right at the 78.2 inches. I'd like to address a couple of the measurements that were taken. Indeed, I was out there with a mason merely for the purpose of giving an estimate, and he wanted to know pretty much what the length of the wall is that had to be repaired. And more or less 12 feet is the length of the bulge. And we did make measurements of the north-south wall, but it wasn't for the purpose of surveying, okay? However, had I known you were coming out, as Todd suggested at the last meeting, the real crux of this is to measure from the northernmost point of the north wall, which is the intersection of Carton, Kane, and McKeon, okay? Where is that drill hole? And then come south 78.2 inches. And that's where the drill hole should be. Thank you, 0.2 feet, okay. So,
Get a much smaller property.
yes, yes. Realistically, that would really make a difference of about a half an inch, whether it's 2 inches or 0.2, because 0.2 I think is about half inches. So Friday afternoon and Saturday morning with a surveyor's tape that measures in tenths of inches. It doesn't measure in like quarter and half and eighths inches. We measured from the intersection of the Carton, Kane, McKeon wall in a southerly direction to 78.2 feet and put stakes there to measure where it is. All right.
Are you suggesting you move to the marker that is currently there?
No.
He's saying
I have
right there.
those.
Put it right there.
I have the fiberglass snow stakes, and I put one on my property right at where the 78.2 feet should be. All right. I'd also point out to this committee that at that intersection of the Kane, McKeon, and Carton wall, there's actually a 2-inch diameter Massachusetts Land Court emblem that marks the drill hole, which is the northerly end. It's very official. And
You're saying on the northerly?
Yeah, so
Northwest corner?
may I show you a diagram?
Yeah, it's on that drawing.
All right, let me show you.
You're talking about
Here is
here.
the Kane's property.
You're talking about here. So I just wanted,
This exact right here.
that's the one that has a
You're right.
medallion.
See where I put
Okay, yeah,
Massachusetts Land Court medallion found.
Okay.
And from there, I took a surveyor's soft, it comes in a wheel that you unwind. It's not a stiff aluminum or a metal. And I came right down to 78.2. And I put a fiberglass marker here. And then to designate the straight line of the wall, I put another one about here so you can line it up. All right. From the corner of the shed, right here, you know, the yellow shed that's right there. I measured it with a regular aluminum measuring tape from the corner to where that drill hole should be, and it measured 6 feet, 10.5 inches. Okay.
All right.
So if you went out there with a measuring tape, and I put a little ink mark with a magic marker on the white corner board. and it says 6 feet, 10.5 inches with an arrow. And then I put a black dot on the exact corner board. So if you took that and just measured 6 feet to the north wall and put the end of it right in the center of the wall, which is maybe 14 inches wide, you know, the stones, that's where the drill hole should be. And if you measure where it should be from where the drill hole actually moved to is about a little over 14 inches. I think it's 16 inches. So,
If I can interrupt here, because as I said earlier, we're straying into surveyor lands here. This is not the purpose of this board to determine where the property markers are. The purpose of this board is to determine where the fence, aka the stone wall, is located. Right.
and I'm getting to that point, sir, if I may continue. Because if you look at the deed and the land court plan that I provided, which shows the Kane wall, which borders the McKean wall, the one that goes east-west, the one that has a bulge in it. The land court of Massachusetts determined that that is a straight line with no bulge, and it should continue.
As we have already been discussing, that's generally.
Yes. However, the layout of the green fiberglass stakes that the Canes installed is not on that line.
Please,
So I'm sorry, say that again, the what?
please explain what you mean.
What he's saying is
Initially,
the
when I
line that
think-
the line that they came up with when they did their measurements and all, and he put the stakes in there saying, hey, this is where we believe it is.
The Kings.
His work. He's saying this is what we've determined where we think the drill hole should be. Based on from that north-south spot, the wall coming up
Okay.
from Pleasant Street towards 138 and running parallel to those two.
There was a land court medallion right there. This is the Carton property. Kane. Shed. Agreed?
Yeah, following it.
Okay. I contend that the property line on which the stone wall is located,
Down at Pleasant Street.
right,
Yeah.
should be a straight line coming westerly.
Yeah.
Coming westerly to a drill hole that is here, which should be 73.2 feet from this medallion. All right, so I took a surveyor's tape and I started exactly at this medallion. And I went 73.2 feet and it measured to about here.
Mr. McKeon, is that 78.2?
Or 78, what does it show?
78.2.
78.2.
78.2,
Pardon
not
me,
70.
78.2. 78.2 feet.
And then you
This
put-
is where it should be. Okay, if you go out there and you can find the rock with the drill hole.
Okay.
And I have not moved one stone, disrupted anything. I haven't done any digging on anybody's property, simply measuring.
Right.
All right. I say if you did draw the straight line, it would,
Go that way.
it would come to
Okay,
here.
So here's the
But
problem.
so my sketches and this.
You know, we get it. We get it.
But if I just may finish, the Canes stakes go in a direction to where the drill hole currently.
Right.
All right,
And
which
this
I
is
don't
what-
think is in the right
this is-
place.
And this is not something for this board to decide. This is where you and I are diverging in opinions. We are not surveyors. We are not going to determine that drill hole is mentioned in documents. It is from, as far as we know, that is where that is. If you want to change that corner, you need to contact surveyors, work with the Kane family and get the corner moved.
Right, so I think what he's saying though is this is what he did based on, owning the property on the corner.
Right,
He's
right.
going out, taking measurements, but saying one thing, he's saying this, he's saying, look, to the best of my ability, this is what I've come up with.
But fundamentally, what
And
he's
we're not
saying
surveyors.
is that the corner marker is wrong. That is
Correct.
beyond our purview.
Right,
We're not going to.
he's not
change
asking
the
us to
corner
change
marker.
that yet. He hasn't gotten to it. He's just saying, I've gone out, done some prelim measurements. I got a mason. This is kind of what we came up with, right? So he's just giving us some base
And
on that.
if I may, because I'm only about halfway done relative only to responding to the remarks
Go ahead.
that were made and what's been in the emails that I really haven't had a chance to fully review, but you've asked for my remarks on them, and this is the best I can do right now.
Go ahead.
It is in fact under the statute, the fence viewer statute, the responsibility of this committee to determine property line and where the fence is.
No, I've researched the law on this or Massachusetts state law, and the business of this committee is to determine where the fence is. And it clearly states in the law that if you have an issue with the property line, you must hire a surveyor.
I'll happily address that point. I respectfully disagree because in the McKeon deed, just like in the Carton deed, both of these properties surround the Kane property. The language of the deed doesn't mention the stone wall. The language of each deed says,
The Kane's deed does.
I didn't mention the Kane, I said the Carton. The
Oh.
Carton and McKeon properties, which are both registered land, having been surveyed by a land surveyor from the land court and whose boundaries have been approved by the Massachusetts Land Court, refer to plans. And the plans are the ones that show the straight lines.
The measurement.
The plans show the stone walls as being the boundaries and that they are straight. And they give very precise measurements as to where to measure from to each, from one drill hole to the next. Or in some cases, if there's a bend in the wall, as in the Carton's case, there's an angle that says how much you go off, like 1 degree, 1 minute, 5 seconds, whatever. So, Mr. Chairman, respectfully, you do have to know where the property line is in order for you to enter an order of fence repair. Now, when I was out with the mason and also my granddaughter, Mr. Tibbetts came over to tell us what we should be doing. Very confrontational. I asked my mason, just please leave him to himself. We'll just continue measuring. And I mentioned that I will likely have to get a surveyor. And I have contacted a surveyor. And if it is the requirements of the Kanes and the Tibbetts to have a surveyor come out to determine where this drill hole should be, the one that's near the shed, whether it's where I say it should be or where the Kanes or actually Mr. Tibbetts claims it should be, we'll get a surveyor. But because they are requiring it, this is again another cost of repairing this wall, is to determine repairing this wall, because we want to know if it should be repaired on this line or repaired on this line. Okay. They're not easy because they've been so busy lately. I may be able to have one come out in another month or so. And as Mr. Pound recommended at the last meeting, this is a critical determination. Where does this 78.2 feet end by the shed? Is it further north or is it where the stone actually is right now? If you recall, at our very first site visit, I asked Mr. Easterday to stand kind of at the top of the wall and we held a string. And I asked him if he could take that from a line from Pleasant Street heading westerly as best as you could.
Right.
And I would hold my end of the line on the other side of the stone wall and put it down. And I have to tell you right now, and I believe Mr. Moore, you took pictures, it's smack dab where I measured it to be. It's off by about 16 inches. Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, you agree that going back literally 2 centuries, there's a deed describing the property line as a straight wall. There are very easy ways of measuring it. Mr. Powling will probably concur that by taking a surveyor's measuring tape and measuring the short distance of 78.2 feet is a proper way of measuring. We're not measuring a half a mile where you need, surveyor's instruments to go and measure that length. So if it is a requirement of the Canes to get a land surveyor in there to measure where that 78.2 feet is, fine. Pricey, at most, I'm only going to pay half of it. It's another cost they incur. I've never heard that Mr. Tibbetts has measured this wall. And he's supposedly a retired surveyor, and he's inundated you with calls and correspondence. And he's never done anything to either find that land court medallion or measure it out to 78.2 feet. Have him do that. If we come to agreement, that's where the end of the wall is.
Then you don't have to incur the
Don't
expense
do anything.
of a land surveyor.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the beginning, I've tried to do this the easiest and least expensive way. I wanted to fix that wall myself. I came out with 2 separate masons to come out and just look and give me a price. 2 days later, two no trespassing signs were placed. One of them absolutely in my own land. How ironic, telling me not to trespass in my own land. I was willing to pay for the mason. I've already got one estimate. The Canes, that route, they're disputing where that should be rebuilt. Fine. If we need to have an exact, official, proper survey, go for it. Order it, it'll be done, and the cost will be shared. Otherwise, if there's an agreement, I've already put out my marks where they are. I've described, Mrs. Kane can bring that back to Mr. Tibbetts. If he wants to go out there and meet with me, I'll put my finger right on the wall where I think it should be. If they come to an agreement on that, put it in writing. We'll have some marker put there, fine. If he wants to measure it and show me where he thinks it should be, I'll stand there and I'll look to see where his measurement is. He may be right, but not, I've measured twice with a surveyor's tape from that medallion, coming down 78.2 feet. It's nowhere near where the current drill hole is.
So excuse me, I'd like to ask my board members, do you disagree with me in any way that we are not going to be judging where property corners are?
I want to hear what Mrs. Kane has to say. After I hear all of the input,
No, I'm not saying about in this, but well.
and then I can tell you about
case.
something that has happened in the town in the past. But I don't want to say that ahead of time.
History.
History. Yeah, I don't want to make a statement about that now that might influence anyone's decision.
No, I'm simply my response to Ms. McKean, I didn't want to.
Basically, we're not surveyors.
That's
Right,
the
I get it.
bedrock.
He's not saying we're surveyors. He's not saying we're surveyors. Yes, okay. I don't think he's saying we're surveyors. I don't think he's,
No, but
asking us to do
what
that.
he's asking is to say, he's saying that it moved. Okay, so we started off this discussion, the wall moved. Now it's the drill hole moved. Now, myself, I do not feel comfortable with saying, oh, let's take a measuring tape and say, oh, that's where it should be. Let's just move it.
okay.
I mean, perhaps if both of you were friendly and were happy to agree to move the rock, that's your business. But I'm saying for this committee, I see a drill hole. And that's the corner of the property. I'm not going to try to say I'm.
Whether it moved or not, correct.
Yeah,
I think what he's now saying is, can we just have some due diligence on the other side rather than just say, let it sit? Go out and make some measurements, tell me where you think it is, and then let's talk about where you think it is. That's what I hear.
so I'm.
I'm still
gonna
saying,
go
listen, I have gone kind of over and
I'm gonna go
above.
out.
It's
I'll
done,
go
masons out, measurements, surveyors tapes. Can we just have some due diligence on the other side? And if you find that it's in another spot, well, then we can start with, you're here, I'm here. Well, then maybe we go to a surveyor. Do you really want to incur that expense? Because I'm only going to pay half because this is half. That's where it's going to go. He's just saying, can we have some due diligence on that side so that the two of them can say, all right, you think it's here, I think it's here, or maybe you come out with the exact same measurement and now it's not a discussion.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Mr. McKeon's measurements are spot on correct.
He
They
wants them to-
probably are.
He would like them to do their own due diligence and say, where do you think it should be? That's all he's kind of asking. That's the way I hear it. Like, hey, just some due diligence on that side so we can at least start talking about this again. That's all. That's the way I hear what he's saying. So now I'd like to hear from her.
But I would also,
For that, you would, Mrs. Kane, please.
I want to say, for example, how do we know that that
We
registered?
I would agree with you in principle to say, I can't go out there and go, oh yeah, that moved, it's over here.
But
That's
how
a
do we-
surveyor's job.
Right, but how do we know that moved and this didn't move?
That's a surveyor's
or-
job, not
exactly,
ours.
It's not our
We can
job.
only say where the wall is. And hey, guys, if you do some due diligence and he's done some due diligence, let's see if that diligence can converge with an agreement before we get to land court. That's
Yes.
Okay.
what I hear.
That's how we're gonna,
We can listen to Mrs.
no, absolutely. I totally agree. We'll start with our own measurements and see if we can come to terms or
Right,
how close we can come to the measurement.
right. So last we spoke, I was correct. You folks were also going to get a mason
Yes,
and get somebody out there to take a look at it.
yes.
He's thinking it's about 12 feet based on his mason, and you guys don't know that yet because you haven't had a mason come out. So you might say 10 feet. He said, oh, but that's something you guys are gonna have to do at some point in time. And if he is a retired surveyor, he's probably got some pretty good input on what he thinks. So we don't know if the starting point on that measurement moved or not. That's a surveyor's job, but we can just say that if they agree, yeah, that's probably about where it belongs. Well, then take your measurements from that anchor point. I mean, that's kind of what I'm hearing, right? So.
Yeah.
If she's not disagreeable to that, then what's the problem?
Does anybody have a ballpark number about a cost? I know Mr.
Yeah, he
McKeon said
mentioned less than $1,000 last time.
he had,
Talking about repair the stone wall. but
yeah, but,
Let's take one subject,
Yes,
okay.
one subject at a time. Let's talk about the corner. And what, are you going to, so you're willing to
take measurements.
just take measurements and come to an agreement? So I'm going to say this from this board, if you guys don't come to an agreement, we're going to say go to a surveyor. I'm not going to say we're going to change the corner of the property. If you guys can both agreeable, and then if you do change it, then that line is going to have to change that we saw.
Understood, yes.
Yeah,
You are okay with this?
Yes,
and then if it does go to a
No
surveyor, I mean, if let's hope it doesn't have to go to a surveyor. Let's hope you guys can come up to an agreement. If it had to go to a surveyor, well, at that point, I mean, it would probably be a 50-50 split on that because that's just your property.
For the cost of the wall.
That would be fair if I was in disagreement with my neighbor saying, hey, let's just finally get this thing settled, fine, whatever you do. But you'd want to get one of your surveyors maybe, or a second opinion, or have them, whatever. Let's hope we don't get there. So if we can leave it that you are going to do your due diligence on your side, get that information and all those other things. And if there's any dispute on that, well, then we'll come back here and
dispute it again,
get back together and
yes.
kind of help come to a
But I did get a price.
Of the mason work? Can we get it from both of you guys? So, Mr. McKean, did you get a new quote?
I have a quote of $950, $950, and I'm also seeking a further one. I'm not sure if the other mason is available to come out and take a look. That's.
but at least a quote, right? Second opinion sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And.
Now, was this to move, so,
This was just to repair the wall,
yeah, but
whether it's
there's
move the wall, not move the
discussion of
wall, repair the
moving
wall,
that
right? So
the wall.
I believe that the estimate that I have is to put the 12 feet of wall that is bulged onto the property line.
however that is.
The new property line, as you've discussed, the new,
I take difference to calling it the new process.
Tell it the agreed
The
upon,
changed.
the agreed upon.
New property line.
That the land court plan says that it is one,
Okay,
all right? And as I said, I've asked for a lot. I don't have too much to add, other than I would be very grateful that if there is any communication by any of the parties to this committee, and vice versa, that everybody get copied on it. My email is on record. It's bill@billmckeon.com. I don't appreciate coming to a meeting and being given a packet when the meeting is underway and being asked to respond to it during the course of the meeting. Some of the things I think we could have taken care of long before coming here today, had I known it was ongoing. Thank you very much.
did you get a quote?
Yes,
And what did you get?
he said roughly around $800.
So we're both in the same ball.
Yeah,
pretty close.
So now, so my opinion is, from everything I've heard, first of all, the explanation from Mr. McKeon about the land court medallion as I remember these, because I remember these on property when I was a kid growing up, these things are in the ground. They don't move like a pile of rocks might, top of a stone wall. So I think that land court medallion is a true marker for the Cotton, Kane, McKeon corner.
It's in a stone though.
It's in the stone.
It's in a
All right,
stone.
but it's anchored. That's my point. It's anchored.
Smith was a drill hole and they stuck it in cement.
Right, right. So that's what I meant in the ground. It's anchored, unlike piling up the rocks on the top of the whatever. Okay, so my feeling is if Mrs. Kane has somebody, Mr. Tibbetts, whoever, started that
Correct.
and measure out 78.2. And I would let Mr. McKeon know that he's going to be measuring this so that Mr. McKeon can be standing on his property, see where it all comes out. If that comes out that way and there is agreement, and I realize you're not the only person involved in this, in the Kane, I'll call it family trust, all right? But if there is consensus amongst the members of the Kane Family Trust, Mr. Tibbetts measured it and it's here. And Mr. McKeon says, that's where I came up with. At least we have, as far as an agreement, this is the boundary. And once that is established, where that drill hole should be, if in fact it's not in the right place right now, but both parties agree, then the next thing is you talk about who's going to do the work and is this, we're going to split it 50-50 or whatever. If in measuring from the medallion, 78.2 feet south, if Mr. Tibbetts says, nope, that's wrong, we're at a point of dispute and the only thing that's going to resolve it is a surveyor. As far as the surveyor goes, I don't believe, as Mr. Moore said, we can order this property to be surveyed because we're not paying for it. But I will tell you this, the history thing I mentioned. Several years ago, we had a complaint from a resident about a old tree that was in bad shape and they wanted it taken down. The question was, the tree warden looked at it and says, I don't know if it's our tree or not. This was over near a town playground. So what happened was it went back and forth. They wanted it down, tree warden says, I can't take it down if it's not our tree, meaning town tree. So the Board of Selectmen said, I'm the one that made the remarks. It's not going to cost a fortune to survey that line. If you survey that line and find out where that tree, who it belongs to, we'll know what to do with it. So the people did survey it. And it turned out the line went through the tree. So the property owner who wanted the tree taken down paid for the survey. The understanding was if the tree was on town property, the town would take the tree down at no cost to the property owner. The line went through it. I said, let's split the cost. The selectmen voted no. They did the survey. The tree is on our property, not entirely, but the town took the tree down. As if you will, it's cost to the contribution of this whole thing. That's how it got resolved. The town did not survey the property. The property owner did. So in this case, and they were amenable to that. So that's how that happened to get resolved. And it was all over a tree, not a drill hole or anything. But it would appear that if the Kane Trust does the measurement and agrees with what Mr. McKeon has said is the distance, 78.2 feet, then we know where the stone wall has to be. And then I would assume that the parties could say, okay, let's hire whoever at a cost of X. We agree to split it. The wall gets rebuilt, whatever, and it's over. If the measurement does not come out, whether it's Mr. Tibbetts or if you hire somebody to do this, if there is a dispute over the length of that wall, I agree with what Mr. Moore said. Folks, the only way you're going to resolve it is hire a surveyor. And if you do that and want to come back to us and say, we figured it all out, this is what the surveyor says, and our solution to the problem is, hopefully, we will split the cost of fixing the wall. It's a done deal. But as far as the actual ordering of that to be done, as I said, my own experience was with the tree story I told you about. The town would not order that to be surveyed. The town says, we're not gonna survey it. But the solution that was worked out is,
Right.
you do
If they
this,
pay for the
we'll do
survey,
that.
then we'll pay for taking down the trees, so
So-
we kind of equal out the cost. So if it's $800 for a surveyor and $800 to do the wall, well, you're splitting it either way.
So that's where I'm coming down on this.
So I'd like to reiterate, again, what, according to Massachusetts law, the responsibilities of this committee is and how things are supposed to be resolved. Our purview is the wall and the wall only. And the law specifically states that we can order the wall to be put in a particular place wherever we decide. That is totally our decision. If the property owners wish to then get a surveyor and change the property markers, then we can revisit it. Okay, but that is not our purview to change property markers. Okay, and forgive me, Mr. McKeon, I did not mean to offend you by saying the new line. What I meant was
Whatever line's decided, right?
where it's physically currently at. That's all I meant. There's no offense intended.
The only thing I would add is, and I understand what you're saying. But my experience in dealing with other situations in the town of Dayton on different kinds of boards. What I am talking about and what I was trying to do, and I think we still can do it, is to get a consensus on how to resolve this. We did
I
take
think
steps.
I think
and we
we're
did
there. I
this.
think we're there.
So this is the next step. I'm looking for consensus. I think we have a plan or a plan. Mrs. Kane is shaking her head, yes, nodding.
So may I interrupt you there for a moment though, because I want to be clear, for the record, who is the owner? I mean, it's the Kane Family Trust. Okay, what started to happen, and I do not want to get into, it's bad enough that we're in the middle of YouTube. We do not want to be in the middle of the Kane and the Tibbet family. We would like to have a consistent message coming from your family and not two different people. So can we deal with you from this point forward? And can I say that?
But I'm not gonna do the measurement of the wall.
No, that's fine.
No, that's
But what
fine.
he's saying is, once the four of you have come to a conclusion, one of you speak for that.
Yes.
You'll be the
So what I'm saying is,
We don't want.
when this meeting ends, I don't want 10 minutes from now to
Mr.
get an
Tibbetts.
email from Mr. Tibbetts
Saying I
that says
disagree.
something completely different than what we've discussed in this meeting.
Correct.
Can you guarantee us that? Thank you.
And if you can't guarantee it, you'll know that it came in and you can let us know if it's a spokesperson, how the Kane Family Trust feels. Okay?
Right, well, I would,
And then Mr. McKeon will be piped in on any of those communications, so you know.
and was that a normal, just sidebar,
Yeah.
is that normal procedure? Because I thought, and I didn't mean to offend you in that either. I thought the general policy was any communication that came in was discussed publicly at the meeting and was not CC'd to other people. I don't want to get involved with, privacy issues or anything like that, or forwarding something I shouldn't be forwarding.
Well, I guess, yeah, I don't know, Nancy, you'd probably know better.
Nancy's probably the
but My thought would be is if somebody's gonna be expected to comment on it, they should probably get a chance to prepare for it. So they should probably have a chance
So
to
what
read
I'm
it is
saying-
all. And if it's gonna become public record, that's all I'm saying. If something is going to become public record, then it's probably not a bad idea. And if somebody's gonna be expected to comment on it, to at least take a peek at
Yeah,
it.
so what I've advocated for, both at the assessors and here, is saying that prior to a meeting, when we do them, just like the Board of Selectmen does, there is a packet that has all the information. So if I go to a Board of Selectmen meeting, I see.
You know what they're talking
Here
about.
is the letters
Right.
that were
And we
received.
need a serious cutoff then. Whatever is out there.
Yeah,
Because I'm
been
getting.
on Friday, we have a 9 a.m. meeting. She can't get something on Friday afternoon and then be expected to be
So my-
putting it in the packet
Have it
last
on
minute.
Wednesday, I have to have my meeting posted.
So then we just,
They-
if
they-
there was a cutoff for Thursday, let's say, for a Monday meeting like that.
Deanne does it the day before. as
You
far
can
as I'm-
post the meeting to meet the schedule. The packet can come out with the agenda attached. The contents of the whole package is not what gets posted. The agenda, you've got to meet the posting deadline. If you're waiting for contracts or something,
Mhm.
when you get them, you put the package together and send it out. But you don't
Doesn't
have.
have to be prior to the meeting announcement.
But it has to be on the agenda.
Okay.
So as long as you put, if it's a contract with Joe Schmo for engineering, as long as that's on the agenda, as long as the board has it ahead of the meeting, and quite frankly, selectmen's meeting, you're lucky if you have it the day ahead of time. Because I've actually received stuff the day of the meeting and it's like,
So correspondence is what she's.
I just, if
Correspondence
anyone's sending
saying it
things
doesn't-
on
back-
Saturday,
back-
then
back
it's
to
not
the-
gonna be on.
Original question, and this is not meant to overburden you, what I'm saying is just as a general policy,
Mhm.
if we have these things, we should have a packet that gets, sent, attached, or, I know that the Board of Selectmen has a link, here's the, click this, and you get the
Mhm.
packet for the meeting. But to the point of what Mr. McKeon had asked is it normal or appropriate that if we receive a communication from Mr. Tibbetts or Mrs. Kane, that we should forward that to Mr. McKeon?
If we have it and it's going to be discussed. And or meaning if he's going to be expected to comment on it, he should know it. If we look at it, we're like, all right, this can't be a part of our meeting. Then no,
Okay,
I would just,
yeah, absolutely, sure.
I had asked during this meeting, and I would ask for you to make it as part of any order that you enter. It's just that if parties communicate with the board or the committee, this meeting and the next, they copy each other on it. Similarly, if you communicate with one or the other, if you could just put a CC on the email.
I see Mr. Pilling shaking his head violently here. Do you have a comment?
Talking on call page and stuff. As soon as you send an email to any of your other board members, you're in violation of the meeting. So you can't be doing that.
That's
If it's part of our discussion, which what we're talking about is the discussion. I don't think.
no, we're not discussing it. He's just saying if an email comes in to him,
Over that email. That is, here into the discussion.
Well, it's supposed to come to me and I would be the one
Yes.
forwarding it to them.
Right. And they can respond.
Right.
and we don't.
They know that.
Because,
And we don't.
Want to get into the discussion, like if she sends something in and she goes up, he responds and then oh my
That
God.
becomes a discussion. I'm not talking about between board members. I'm talking about, no. I'm saying one party here is sending us a communication through Stephanie. Should we forward that to the other party? And I felt, and forgive me, I'm learning as we're doing this. I'm not sure what the correct procedure was. I thought it was discussing it at the meeting.
I asked that you get your suggestion. Instead of someone sending you an email and asking you to send it to me,
They should CC you to begin with.
that's
Of course.
That's exactly what I'm asking. You don't have to do anything. The other hand, if this board through Stephanie is going to send an email to me, copy it to the Kings and the Tibbetts, vice versa. I'm not asking you at all.
right. Okay, I'm clear now. I'm clear on that.
Okay, so just note that that in the future, any communications, you should CC the party on both sides. Okay, and I would go a step further, and if we don't see a CC, we'll forward it to the other party.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just want
Let's
to
keep
point
that
out
going,
for
George.
public information. You need to tell members of the Kane Trust, I know Mr. McKeon knows this. Under Massachusetts state law, when those emails are sent in and then arrive at a meeting or whatever, that's public documents. Whatever somebody writes in there, whether it's an offhanded comment or factual data or a hot shot, it's public information. And if somebody puts derogatory comments or whatever in emails to a board, it's derogatory, and the party that is being attacked has the right to that. And it could lead to legal issues from the person who's
Slander or
being
something
attacked
like
to the other person. So when I read that first email that like him, what meeting did this come from? Because I felt uncomfortable that with that email that we found out later, you said, we didn't know about that. So that made me feel better. By the same token, it's a public document. And so I would just mention to the members that if they send emails, those emails, in effect, the public can access. All right, so it's a cautionary thing.
Okay. Horse is dead.
Oh, just one other thing, as far as what you said about forwarding emails. Both as a selectman or finance or pick a committee, whatever. If I got an email that had substance to it, or get one now, stormwater, I send it to Roz and say, send this out to the board.
Right.
It's an FYI, which means, don't get back to me, guys. This is probably going to be on an agenda.
Right.
By the same token, if I got an email that was really derogatory, I would probably hold on to it and seek advice from higher up. And I don't mean God, I mean next door. I got this email. Here's the contents. I'm not sure if I should hold on to this or if I should send it out to the board because it's going to become public, right? That issue is how the whole problem developed when a selectman received a horrendously bad, nasty email. And we ended up with a bylaw against hanging flags or what can be. That's what triggered it, was that email. That email was sent to one individual. My personal opinion was it should have been stomped on, gotten rid of. That became a public document, and we know the history of everything since then. So I would say if a email comes in and there is question about its contents, send it to the chairman and say, take a look at this. What do you want me to do with it? And if he says, put it in the file, it goes in the file. If he says,
Okay. fair
send
enough.
it out simply because,
Let's hope we don't have to do it.
Let's hope.
no, but I'm just.
Keep up. I get it. It's,
I mean,
Okay.
that was the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Things I've dealt with haven't been like that.
Right.
Okay, but I just
Okay.
mentioned this.
Okay, so I think I'd like to just summarize, make sure we're all on the same page. I think the McKeans and the Canes are going to get together and decide where the corner of the property is. Is that correct?
They're gonna do some measurements on their side, their due diligence.
You agree, Mr. McCain?
Yes.
Mick-
Yeah. Yeah, he's good. Yeah,
So I think that's, what we
that's
should
where we'll
be-
leave it. Yeah, we'll leave it to you guys to do that. Yep.
We're gonna get the corner defined, and when the corner is defined, then
Review. Yeah.
review about where to put the wall.
Okay,
That's fair.
that's fair.
For a motion on
Very
that.
good.
I will make a motion that representatives from the Kane Family Trust will conduct a measurement from the medallion south along the property line to determine where the drill hole should be for the sidewalk that separates the McCain,
Sidewall. Sidewall.
excuse me, stone wall.
Stonewall.
Tommy's gonna say this.
Whole new project.
Tommy says, I didn't put sidewalks there. At to determine where the stone wall is the boundary between the Kane and McKeon properties, where the drill hole should be.
And come back.
And
To our
report
next
back to the board.
I second the motion.
Further discussion,
Okay.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. McKeon.
I would just ask, Madam Clerk, if you could add a temporal part to that, when it should be done by, when it should be reported back to you by, and if this committee is going to further adjourn this.
Okay, I was just getting my book out because I want to see, when's our next meeting?
3 weeks. So,
We don't have another one set.
Yeah, 3 weeks from,
yes, we do.
Not this, not for fence viewing.
No, but for assessor.
no, but if we have it the same day as the assessors,
Okay,
because it makes
28th.
sense.
Wednesday, the 28th.
Our regular meeting is
Yeah, September 28th.
Wednesday,
Today.
September 28th. Yeah.
So Wednesday, September 20th at 9 a.m. is the Board of Assessors.
At 10 a.m., so we could do it 10 a.m. So I don't want to, do we want to officially set a meeting at this point or wait until
I'd set it because you can always cancel it, but you can't always post them if you miss the 48-hour thing.
All right, if we can set at 10 o'clock. Yes, 28.
September 28th.
Okay,
So if you would amend your motion to say. Or then it should be before the meeting.
okay, so before I come up with that, Mrs. Kane, what do you think is a reasonable amount of time to do that measurement so that I can say in this motion and that we will hear back from the Kane Family Trust, the results of their measurement by
Next Monday?
the 19th of September,
Yes.
week from today. All right. So Mrs. Schechter.
Yep.
So what I said,
You should make a motion to amend.
well, actually, withdraw the second and I'll withdraw the motion and we'll start over.
I didn't thought anyone seconds. People seconded.
I didn't second.
Yes.
Oh, you didn't second it. I thought, okay.
Oh,
Okay, all right, even
discussion.
I withdraw the second if it.
Right, so I withdraw the motion. I start over. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move. I move that we ask the Kane Family Trust to measure the boundary from the medallion, and I'll have the exact wording for that in a minute. Yeah.
It might be on the others.
It's the other page, yep. From the Mass Land Court medallion at the intersection of the Carton, C-A-R-T-I-N, Kane and McKeon property. South by 78.2 feet to determine the location of the drill hole in the stone wall that marks the boundary between the Kane and McKeon properties. And that a member of the Kane Family Trust report back to Mrs. Schechter by September 19th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Does that work for everybody? Okay. I'm all set. You all set, Mrs. Kane?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and
All in favor?
all in favor? yeah?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Don't go
Oh,
away
so,
yet.
we need to set a date for the next meeting. So I will make a motion that,
Can you hold that for 1 second,
Okay,
please?
go ahead.
Because I wanted to talk about, in addition to this, so you two are going to figure out where that corner point is. I would like to ask if we could also get those stakes moved
Yes.
to wherever you both agree,
If they both agree, let's.
assuming you both agree.
Yep.
Okay, that you move the stakes
To wait.
and that I can come back out and take a look and make sure that we're all on the same page. I'll be certain to notify Mr. McKeon also that he'll have the opportunity to be there as well. To look to see where the new line is. So hopefully we're all in the same.
Page. That's fair.
Is that fair?
Yep, I think it's fair.
Okay, so can I have a motion to that?
I make a motion that following the boundary measurement from the medallion, that the board be notified. Excuse me, that the stakes be moved to the location
Agreed.
of agreed upon location, 78.2 feet from the medallion. That
In a
the
straight
stakes be
line?
moved in a straight line. And that the board be notified so a member can inspect the site
prior to our next.
prior to the next meeting of the FVFD. Sounds like the fire department, somebody else.
Okay.
Is that it? Is that what we're playing?
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. I got another motion. I make a motion that we set the next meeting of the fence viewers field drivers for 10 o'clock. September 28th in this building, and that at that time, both parties will have cost estimates for repairing and rebuilding the wall.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. McKee.
again.
Very optimistic. I'd like you to also bear in mind that there might not be consensus as to where measurements of the wall have to be.
Exactly.
That be further readings, rather than discussed it here, probably discussed it. Having a surveyor come.
If,
Whichever it is.
right, if, whatever it is, that's
If-
correct.
If,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
with the information we have on the 19th, it appears there isn't consensus, then obviously, or if we think we have consensus, it'll be on the agenda. If we find out by the day at the meeting, no, that's not going to work. We just don't act on it on this particular motion. Okay?
And then we'd have to discuss land surveys. That's the thing.
Since both parties have gotten estimates already, bring them in, and if we can discuss them, we will, and hopefully get that resolved, okay? All right,
All right.
Thank you.
call the vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you all very much. Go to. Any public input?
Oh, so we do have minutes. I said none, but
We have a review and approve of 8/24/22 board minutes and 8/29 site visit. We had an 8/29. I only saw one.
I didn't get the minutes done when we came back.
okay,
Yeah,
so.
I didn't see minutes on that. So
Yeah.
It's just eight.
So
the two.
the first meeting, the organizational meeting, you're right, the 24th, and then site visit notes for the 29th.
Did you get a chance to see any of it?
Okay, I make the motion, we approve the meeting minutes for August
Sorry.
24th.
Yeah, that's what I saw,
He's
but
sorry.
I didn't have any site. Oh, you're saying that when we all. Oh. okay.
Yeah, I sent that out.
Thank you.
Right, didn't I sent out the site one?
We get site minutes. It's the meeting in between we don't have. You said you didn't get.
I didn't
that.
do 8/29's meeting, so we have the
Yes.
24, we have the site visit, but not when we came back, so it's the
Right.
last.
And what was so confusing was because we had a Board of Assessors meeting, we had minutes for that other meeting. Because when I'm reading them last night, it's like, wait a minute. So right now, all we're going to act on is, I move that we approve the minutes of August 24th, that's our organizational meeting, and the site visit notes for August 29th, 2022.
So they're not minutes, they're called notes.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Okay, so I have minutes written down here.
It's not a problem. Eventually there will be minutes. We don't, if you have a litany of them,
Oh, I
like,
thought that would be it.
Actually, there isn't any minutes on a site visit because no business is.
no, that's not the point. There are absolutely notes on a site visit. The minutes are when we came back to this building.
Oh, okay, so,
So there are minutes.
Right, that's
Okay.
what I said. There's no
minutes
minutes for the
From the
visit.
property, it's
Because
all discussed back here, right?
Right. And the
Oh, okay.
reason we do site visit notes
notes.
is because it gives us an opportunity to ask all kinds of questions and take some notes on who asked what and what they were looking
Yeah,
at,
what
so
they
that when we
discussed.
come back to the meeting,
Sure,
okay,
so-
Yeah. that it becomes part of the,
yeah,
gotcha.
it becomes part of the official record, but they
Sure.
aren't minutes.
Fair enough.
Okay, do we have a motion?
All right.
Yeah, to move to approve the minutes of August 24th and site visit notes of August 29th, 2022.
I second
Motion
that.
made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any unanticipated items? I had something in my brain. Oh, yes, I just want to give you a quick update. I think I'm going to be going to the Board of Selectmen on Wednesday. I requested to be there.
As what?
And
Fence viewer?
to discuss the purpose of the fence viewer and more particularly field driver.
You're doing this on your own,
Correct.
not from the committee.
As we discussed at our last meeting.
We didn't vote to do anything. You said you were going to take it to the board.
Right.
That we didn't vote to do that. I'm opposed to that, quite frankly. I'm not opposed to you as an individual questioning it. But this board did not vote to go to the Board of Selectmen about the duties and potentially eliminating that position of,
Well, what would you like, Nancy?
you can go there as an individual. But I'm saying if we are going to, if a request is going to be made to do away with field driver's position, I'm going to oppose it simply because, number one, it's historic. It goes back to colonial times. There is so much, in my opinion, although nobody has done it because we've never done this before either. Any person who is uncomfortable with having that appointment, if I really said, I think this is stupid, I would hope the committee would say, Nancy, you don't have to serve, resign your position as a field driver, right?
FDFV.
So my entire point is that we are field drivers or we are not. There's either the position exists or it doesn't. If the position exists,
We
you
have-
should be doing the job as
No,
prescribed.
we have
by-
the position because, again, it's statutorily created. However, it was created so long ago that in modern times, there was a time when we only had a dog officer. You got problems with any other critters, I assume field drivers had to get involved, although nobody's ever done it that I know of. Possibly, and he's gone now, but Paul Hofshire as the animal inspector may have been involved with field driving when we only had a dog officer. But anyhow, we went to dog officer. We went from dog officer to animal control. And at that point, the definition of the animal control officer in effect takes the problems of loose animals, whatever they are, and assigns it to animal control.
Okay, so hang on. What's the purpose that you want to get done on Wednesday night?
So
You want to eliminate the
What she
position or
just-
not? It sounds like
I don't have an opinion.
Right,
What I'm saying is I want clarification
of our duties.
because the definition of field driver, which is clearly delineated in Massachusetts state law as to what the job of the field driver is in direct conflict with the job of the animal control officer. So either we are going to do that job or we're not. And if we're going to do that job, does that mean that, we supersede the ACO? Do we work in conjunction with the ACO? Does the ACO work for us? Do we work for the ACO? I want clarification as to what the role is. But I am not going to say, as far as eliminating it goes, I'm not going to have a title of field driver that means nothing. That means we're not going to do anything that ever involves wild animals. We're talking about the pigs. There are pigs roaming the streets.
They weren't wild.
That's-
They weren't
so-
wild. Were domestic pigs that got out.
That's the whole purpose of the.
Yeah, but
field
I
driver,
think-
domesticated animals.
Well, anyway, so what I'm saying is you just want clarification on whether we're doing it or the animal control officer is doing it or where the
Exactly,
animal
exactly.
control officer's authority it begins and ends.
Exactly.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that in the case of the pigs, that is exactly what a field driver is.
Right. And
Is that you have an owner of pigs
so
that let them,
it would also having an animal control officer is what she's saying, kind of, that's their job too.
exactly.
So even if they fell under our umbrella, they're gonna go out and do it. We're not gonna do it as field drivers.
And if that's the case, what's the purpose of having a field driver?
I think the problem is.
It was
it's
set up a long time ago.
Statutorily, it's
Purpose of
there.
Eliminating it.
Okay, statutorily, it's on the books.
Right.
Maybe when Charlie Baker and Karen Polito wrote the weed whacker bill, one of them should have been, who does field driving anymore? We got ACOs. That's a law that should be stricken, because when they did the weed whacker bill, They got rid of a lot of old stuff that made no sense at all. However, it's on the books. We've been appointed to 2-year terms.
Which is also incorrect, by the way. That's, that I'm going to bring up at the meeting.
Well, the
According
other
to
thing.
Massachusetts state law, it is a 1-year position.
Okay, so because with the passing of all the rules regarding animal control and all that good stuff, there was no looking at, does this conflict with anything? All right, we just do it. All right, I was on the board when we created the position of animal control, because I was also chairman of the Board of Health, and the dog officer wouldn't come if I said, we've got a sick cat or a whatever. I don't do that. You will do this. But anyhow, that's when we went to the full ACO, so that we didn't have to pick and choose which animals were going to be
Right.
picked up,
Correct.
taken care of, whatever.
Control, right.
The ACO is truly an appointment of the Board of Selectmen. The inspector is not. The inspector is a direct appointment by
Would help.
the state
State.
under the Department of Agriculture. The role of the selectman in the inspector is recommend somebody to the state. But technically, they wanted to combine the positions this year, and I said, you can't do that. And then went back and forth. Finally, they agreed because they checked with the state, and you don't combine the positions simply because one of them is a direct appointee of the state, even though the town pays it. If the state is not happy with somebody doing that job and says, gone,
Right.
well, wait a minute, we put this all together, so forth, so on. That's why they're separate. But I think what we're talking about is really when ACOs became a position, recognized in duties and all that, nobody looked back to find out about field drivers. And in all honesty, if they would look back and say, why do we have fence viewers? It's a civil matter. Let them all go to court. Well, what we found out with this case is if we can resolve this without a lot of expense and get these parties to agree on boundaries, then the work we've put into it is worth it. Okay?
So, all right. So you're saying there shouldn't be a title with no responsibilities,
Yes.
pretty much. And you're saying, yeah, we can keep the title and the responsibilities fall on the ACO. So why eliminate the title, right? Is that kind of what you're hearing? Because the responsibilities are covered by the ACO. So it's title only. So what's the big deal?
The other thing is now with the structure of the ACO is not directly under the Board of Health anymore. ACO is under the police department. Okay,
Right, okay.
right? So that's another issue. I suppose if she ever needed help and said, hey, can you come, whatever,
So field driver would be a backup, right, to ACO.
And maybe that's the
If
answer.
they already fall under the police department, then.
But maybe that's the answer. That's what I'm saying, is that right now, I have no idea what this role is supposed to be, because I know what it's clearly defined as the role as in mass state law. And are we even allowed to do that? Can we have this role and then not follow what Massachusetts state law says?
Well, ACO would supersede that because that's now under the.
or if we attempted to do it, I see the police saying to us, stop right,
Get out of there. We got an ACO for that.
stop right there.
So
Because this.
I don't see a problem with the title. I mean, I'm not twisted around the axle about the title. And because if the responsibility is already taken care of by somebody else, then the title's there, fine. I mean, that's historic.
It's not a hill worth dying over, having the title, but at least would like the clarification that says it's a do nothing job. It's.
All right, so then what Nancy's saying is don't go there as a representative of the board. She's saying, go there as Bill, check it out, talk about your concerns so they can start the gears grinding on their discussions. But let them get back to you and say, okay, well, here's what we think.
We can have this as an agenda item, a report from Bill on the next meeting about whatever he finds out from the Board of Selectmen.
She's saying, go there as Bill, don't go there as a representative.
I don't understand the difference, really. What's,
Because
You're speaking for both of us.
let's be.
She's saying she don't want you
And I'm,
her at the board because she disagrees why you're going. Go there as Bill. Talk about it because she won't have any issue with you going as Bill, but she will if you're representing
No.
us as a board.
no, there's more to it than that. if Bill goes there as an interested person, I'm a field
Taxpayer.
driver, and I've looked into this. And I think I'm in conflict with the animal control officer. That's fine. If he goes there and speaks, and they're under the impression it is this board that is asking that question, we haven't voted to do that. Okay, now, if we voted to do it and the vote is 2 to take it there and 1 no, you can still move ahead with it. But this board has not acted on this. That's why.
Right.
Why don't we?
Because it's not on the agenda, number one. When you brought it up the first time, I said, we can't discuss it. It's not on the agenda. And that's when you said you were going to look into it. So what I'm saying is, go to the Board of Selectmen meeting, ask your questions, and we will have a report, an update on this at our next meeting. And then you can
Then we
tell
can, vote-
us.
then we can
Then we
vote on
can-
something, right, we have something more of substance.
I feel like I heard them say that you are on the agenda for Wednesday night to discuss this with the select.
Do you know that for sure? I haven't heard that.
Mr. Hall said it at our board of health meeting on Thursday that it sounded like it was going to be on for Wednesday.
Did he
I
say,
requested it, But I'm.
but did he say the committee or did he say, oh, you don't know?
It had something to do with the field driver and whether it should be with animal or with Board of Health or with, and I think it was just more of a general discussion of where should this be. But I didn't press them on it in any way. because it's
No.
their issue.
And that,
And
that,
it's getting it to me, then I-
that's fine. That's fine. That's why I'm saying to Bill, go to the meeting, bring up your questions, get the information, and then at our next meeting, bring it back to the board and tell us, and then
Okay,
it'll
so
be on the
nothing
agenda.
sounds like it's changed. I just don't, I'm not sure how I clarify that I'm Bill, the field driver versus Bill. the
So what I do when
chairman.
and usually it's at a number of titles at the same meeting. If it's Concom, I go to the podium and say, whatever board, I'm Nancy Goulart from the Stormwater Committee. And we've discussed this and I just want to let you know about this, da, 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 da. There was another. There was another one.
As long as when you get to the podium, you say why you're at the podium, because if you just get up there and start talking, anybody can assume who you're speaking to.
Oh, I know there was one that I get up and said, I'm from the Board of Assessors. I'm here to ask questions. Or I said, I'm from the Board of Assessors. You need to know that the Board of Assessors voted dun, da, dun, da, dun, da, da.
Oh, so I
all
would,
was
so I
reporting.
would definitely not go to that level. I would just go up and introduce myself.
Just say Bill
I'm
Morris.
I'm on the field driver committee and I have questions.
Yeah,
Are you okay
exactly.
with that?
Yeah, because then you're gonna
Just ask
put it on the
clarification,
agenda.
that's all.
And at the next meeting, you're gonna give us a report
Right,
on
right.
whatever happened. Okay?
We're good?
Yeah.
I'm good with that. No motion on that.
All right. Anybody like to adjourn?
I'd love to adjourn. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
No discussion.
No discussion. Thank you.
31. Look like. Yeah, 11:31.
11:31.
So at 1 o'clock, we got a meeting here, stormwater.
You're in